And I think that there's a lot of Americans that are at the end of their hope, right? And they feel really disillusioned and they feel this lack of trust that we've spoken about today. And simply wanting things that they want isn't enough. And I think that's when you said like current circumstances lead to a Trump victory. It's not like Trump populism. I think there was a rejection of the establishment for a lot of people. And then hearing from Kamala that she wasn't really going to do anything differently. I think that was a big mistake because I think people wanted to change. So I think that's something that you guys should endeavor to do is tell us specifically what you're going to do that satisfies those things we're feeling. It seems you know exactly what we're feeling because that was beautiful. I think all of us were like, yo, you just hit it. You knocked out the park. But I need the statements that are going to satisfy those feelings because that's what gets people to sway over. And that's what they're fucking good at.
Yeah, the bumper sticker.
They are what? So what's a Democratic bumper sticker?
I'm working on it.
Fair enough. But that is the important.
And I think people need to know that we see them and we don't see them as the problem, right? Because I do think to the finger wagging point, so much of politics is about what people think you think of them or how you make people feel about themselves. Before people even start to decide what they think about you, they're thinking about how you make them feel about themselves. And this is a struggle, especially because I belong to a party that has deep moral convictions. And you could argue we take it too far, whatever, but like we are propelled by a lot of deep moral convictions, whether we're talking about an economy where we think that it's too easy for the wealthy and too hard to work your way up, or whether we're talking about a society where we're worried about
marginalized
racial
groups.
Justice and marginalized groups, right? But there is a way to engage people who don't start with where you can't lead people to where they already are anyway. Like one thing I think about a lot is right around the time I came out, which is like a terrifying thing to do as a like elected official in Indiana, right?
This was after you got back from Afghanistan.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It was after
What happened? What did you eat out there?
No, honestly, what happened was, when you get deployed, they tell you to write a letter. And I still have it in a drawer somewhere. And it's the letter, it just says just in case on the outside.
Wow.
And it's everything from that you want your loved ones to know, from your internet passwords to like how you feel your life went, right? Everybody should do this, by the way. You shouldn't have to like wait to be sent to war to do this.
Yeah.
And I was a sitting mayor of my hometown because I was a reservist. So I got deployed while I was in office, and I just took a leave, stopped being mayor, started being lieutenant, and went into my other job, basically. So I was a sitting mayor of my hometown. I had a beautiful house. I had good friends. I had like a good life. And that was part of what I wrote about in that letter. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, but I'm a grown-ass man in a position of responsibility. And I don't actually know what it's like to be in love. And if I get back, I'm not going to let that continue. Like whatever the implications, I'd rather deal with that than once again contemplate the idea that I could go to my grave not knowing what it's like to be in love. So then, it was awkward timing because it's actually the middle of a re-election. But I took some time, like I took months to think through, okay, how do I do this? How do I say this? Like, what is that? And then one day I did it. I wrote a little op-ed in the local paper. I said, I don't think this should be anybody's business, but I know it's a thing. Here's something you should know about me. And it was fine. I mean, it wasn't fine. There were,
people upset.
There was some ugliness around it, but like, nothing ever happened that made me regret that I did it. But the story I was starting to tell was that sometime after that, when I started dating Chasten, maybe, I don't know, some months
Did he
after
jump
that.
on that immediately? Was he like, oh, hell yeah? Did he like slide into the DMs? He was like, he's, you know what I mean? Like, was that quick afterwards?
No, I found him. Well, we were on, it was Hinge, the dating app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't Grindr.
Grindr's for Republicans.
I know everybody thinks
We do need to talk about why every time the RNC happens, Grindr explodes. I'm just saying. Out him.
Seems like a lot of letters need to be written.
They don't serve.
So anyway, I met him, fall in love, start dating, and this I run into this woman I know, I think in the lobby of the county city building. I'm walking into work. I know she's a little more conservative. And she comes up and she says, I ran into your friend and he's wonderful.
Oh.
And it was one of those moments, right, where like, I think it was very important that the thing to recognize is like, for her, she was signaling something pretty big for her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know exactly, but I can guess like how she thought about and talked about gay people probably all her life. But she knew me, she met him, he's wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
right. Versus if I like treated her to a lecture on the difference between a friend and a partner, right?
Yeah.
You know, that would have pushed her right back into the arms of
Yeah.
these people who don't
That's a
want
great
anything
point.
good for like me. So what I take from that is this broader process that needs to go on where we find people, and as passionate as we are and as right as I believe we are about the big things, even though I'm open to the fact that we may not be right about everything, we're not telling people that they are bigoted or racist or whatever, because they don't already start out in the same place that we are. Right? There has to be that process of kind of inviting people to look at things the way we look at things,
Yeah.
versus commanding them to. And I think that is something that in the culture of my party has been especially challenging in the last like 10 or 20 years. But that we need to work through, because again, politics is about persuasion. It's about finding people where they are. It's about how they feel about themselves. I think there is a desire for belonging that is not just something liberals care about. I actually think the loss of belonging that happens in a town like where I grew up, when you lose your auto job and the workforce development agency comes along and says, good news, I found a job that you can get qualified for based on your education, and it pays just as much, and you're going to be a nursing assistant.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's a perfectly good job, obviously, but like, if the last 20 years of your life have been about not just the way you make your money, but the way you see where you fit in the world, is about what you know how to do in a machine shop. And some well-intentioned person with a clipboard is telling you, guess what? Now you get to be a nursing assistant.
Yeah.
Like, that is not finding people where they are. That's not because something has happened to their sense of belonging. And, we really care about belonging, maybe to a fault, but like, we try to make sure that there is room for everybody at the table in society and in different processes and in our politics. But if we really take that seriously, like if we really live up to that, that means recognizing that some crises around belonging are a big part of why some people, many of whom voted for the other guy this last time, are really prepared to just burn the house down and think that's no worse than any of the other things that could happen.
So